North Korea better get their act together, or they're going to be in trouble like few nations ever have been in trouble in this world.
President Trump ups the ante in his tough talk against North Korea, while North Korea issues new threats against Guam. A lawsuit is filed over police actions during a Trump campaign rally in San Diego. The suit claims officers violated free speech rights.
The first torpedo split poor little destroyer half in two.
A rare honor for a San Diego survivor of the Battle of Midway. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amita Sharma in for Ebony Monet. We begin tonight with the latest in the rising tensions between the U.S. and North Korea. That country announced detailed plans to launch ballistic missiles toward Guam, a day after President Donald Trump promised fire and fury if North Korea threatened the U.S. again. Trump did not back down from that language today.
But if anything, that statement may not be tough enough.
What would be tougher than fire and fury?
Well, you'll see. You'll see. The people of our country are safe. Our allies are safe. And I will tell you this, North Korea better get their act together, or they're going to be in trouble like few nations ever have been in trouble in this world.
We have more on the global reaction from Tracy Brown of the Associated Press.
Echoes of President Donald Trump's verbal blast against North Korea.
They will be met with fire and fury,
continuing to ricochet around the globe. North Korea now adding a timeline, mid-August, to previously announced plans to launch a salvo of ballistic missiles at Guam, creating what they describe as an enveloping fire around the island. Residents of the U.S. territory of Guam, despite their complicated relationship with the mainland, say they feel reassured by the large American Air Force and naval bases there.
Here we are, North Korea threatening our island, but again, with the military present here, I'm pretty sure we're safe.
The war of words continued Thursday, Pyongyang using state-run television to accuse Trump of acting senile while on the golf links again. South Korea, meanwhile, is urging its neighbor to the north to open a door of dialogue. And Japan says U.S. deterrence power is extremely important, and Tokyo appreciates the U.S.'s stand that all options are on the table.
South Korea and Japan are already in that zone of vulnerability. If we don't have South Korea and Japan on our side in that decision-making process, then we're jeopardizing our alliance relationships with those countries for potentially years to come.
By using such inflammatory language, the president may have undermined the only serious prospect for resolving the North Korea crisis, successful cooperation with China.
President Donald Trump's statement calling for war or unprecedented fire and fury is not constructive towards the final achievement of the goal of denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula. It actually will damage the global leadership and the global reputation.
Trump's strategy had relied on a delicate diplomatic two-step, increasing pressure on China in hopes that in turn China will use its influence to get North Korea to abandon its nuclear aspirations. China may view Trump's latest apocalyptic missive as evidence he isn't truly interested in the kind of diplomatic solution that would preserve Beijing's #1 interest, stability in its region. Tracy Brown, Associated Press.
China has been reluctant to take a stronger stand against North Korea. NPR Shanghai correspondent Rob Schmitz explains why.
China is North Korea's most important ally. It's the North's biggest trading partner. 90% of all of North Korea's trade is with China. And China is the North's main source of food and energy. So China has enormous leverage over the regime of Kim Jong-un and globally is in the best position to apply real pressure over North Korea and its nuclear and weapons program. So here's why China's reluctant to put pressure on North Korea. The two countries share an 870-mile border that, at the moment, is a relatively quiet one, with Chinese troops on one side and North Korean troops on the other. But hundreds of miles beyond that border is South Korea, home to 29,000 U.S. troops that China does not want along its border with North Korea, because that's what might happen should the North Korean regime collapse. You see, China sees North Korea as a buffer between itself and a world that it sees is on the side of the United States. In fact, China has long believed that the positioning of U.S. military bases throughout the Pacific is a strategy to contain China and prevent it from gaining influence in the region. Should that buffer be eliminated, not only does China have the U.S. military at its doorstep, making Beijing feel even more contained by the U.S. and its allies, but it also suddenly has to deal with hundreds of thousands of North Korean refugees pouring into China, creating even more instability. This is why China is reluctant to take any measures that could lead to the collapse of North Korea.
PBS NewsHour will have the latest on the tensions between the U.S. and North Korea coming up at 7 tonight. Two attorneys have filed a lawsuit against the San Diego Sheriff and Police Departments over their actions during a Donald Trump campaign rally last year. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the suit claims free speech violations.
Donald Trump came to the San Diego Convention Center in May of last year, a week and a half before the state primaries.
Look at those cameras, those bloodsuckers.
Hundreds were gathered outside to protest then-candidate Trump. San Diego Police Chief Shelley Zimmerman had warned them of what would happen if they got violent.
We're going to act very swiftly, very decisively, and anyone that does that and commits, those type of acts, they should expect to be arrested.
As the afternoon wore on, scuffles broke out and police made arrests. Eventually, police declared an unlawful assembly and told the crowds they needed to disperse. Attorney Brian Pease filed the lawsuit. He says the police targeted people who had committed no crime.
They were just arresting anybody that was in their path who was not moving quickly enough, and it's a violation of the First Amendment.
The San Diego City Attorney's Office said it would review the complaint and consult with city officials. Pease said the lawsuit will be formally served on Friday. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Qualcomm Stadium is scheduled to host nearly 600 events by the end of this fiscal year, but the city says it will be about $7 million in the red. The City Council committee is scheduled to get a report tomorrow about activities at the aging stadium. It's set to host 9 San Diego State football games, the Holiday Bowl, and some concerts, including U2 next month. Some council members have been trying to get the stadium declared surplus property. The scheduled events are projected to bring in $3.5 million in revenue, but expenses for the stadium are projected at more than $10 million. San Diego County's Climate Action Plan is now available for public comment until September 25th. KPBS's Deb Welsh tells us about the draft plan to cut greenhouse gases in the county's unincorporated areas and in government operations.
The plan is created to meet state greenhouse gas reduction targets with actions that, quote, balance environmental, economic, and community interests while taking into account the county's largely rural character. The plan, now available online, identifies installing solar energy panels and increasing renewable energy as its top measures for reducing greenhouse emissions. But although it identifies transportation as the county's top source of greenhouse emissions, it says the county has limited options for controlling transportation strategies. Environmental activist Nicole Capritz tweeted that county was, quote, punting on land use and transportation measures. After the public comment period, the San Diego County Planning Commission and the San Diego County Board of Supervisors will hold hearings in early 2018. Deb Welsh, KPBS News.
A judge has rejected a legal challenge to the Plaza de Panama project in Balboa Park. The plan would remove cars from the heart of the park, building a bypass road and a paid parking garage. It's been the target of multiple lawsuits that nearly killed the project. The latest challenge called for new environmental impact studies, but the judge ruled they weren't necessary. There is still one more suit pending over plans to issue bonds for the project. A rare honor today for a World War II veteran here in San Diego. There is now a barrack named for 102-year-old Andrew Mills, who served during the Battle of Midway. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh was at the ceremony.
We're out here at Naval Base Coronado for the dedication of the new barracks. Now, normally they don't name buildings after people who are alive, but they decided to make an exception for Chief Mills. In 1942, Andrew Mills served in the Pacific on board the Yorktown. The carrier was heavily damaged when he volunteered to go below deck to help save the contents of the safe. He was lowering the paymaster's cash to the nearby destroyer when
the first torpedo split the poor little destroyer half in two, and they lost almost everybody.
Mills survived and went on to a career in the U.S. Post Office in San Diego. Captain Steve Barnett heard the story when he was commander at Naval Base Coronado. Though it's unusual for the Navy to name a building after someone who is still alive, Barnett felt Mills exemplified what it means to be a sailor.
And I wanted our sailors to understand some of the trials and tribulations that folks went through, particularly for him being a minority, being in the service, and then once you're in, fighting for your life. You know, so he was kind of catching it from both ends.
Andrew Mills Barracks cost $68 million. It will house 934 sailors, mainly from the carriers Carl Vinson and Theodore Roosevelt. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Some California farmers say they are trying to make do with the shortage of migrant workers, in part because of the national rhetoric about immigration. Some crops are not even being picked because of the lack of workers. A spokesman for the State Farm Bureau says talk about immigration reform needs to include plans for agricultural labor.
Even in the midst of all this anti-immigration rhetoric that we've heard, there's been some recognition that there are appropriate places where we can have immigration and it can be a benefit to the United States. I think growing our food is clearly one of those places where we can have immigrants come in and it will be to everyone's benefit.
The U.S. Department of Labor says 90% of California farm workers are foreign-born, many coming from Mexico. Poway Unified's former school superintendent has pleaded not guilty to charges of misappropriating public funds. The felony charges against John Collins include using a district credit card for personal expenses and putting in for vacation time already used. Prosecutors say he took more than $345,000 in public funds. He was fired by Poway Unified last year. Collins faces a possible 7 years behind bars if convicted. San Diego's math minds are meeting tomorrow to solve perhaps their most complex equation yet, math education. KPBS education reporter Megan Burks has more.
80% of California students entering a community college test into remedial classes, the majority in math. It means they have to spend time catching up on high school level math before they can even start earning college credits, and it makes them significantly more likely to fall short of earning a degree. UC San Diego's Math Network is hosting a symposium at Kearney High tomorrow to work on solving this complex problem.
Your high school, your community college, and your university folks coming together and saying, yes, we collectively, collaboratively need to address this problem. And so what are we going to do moving forward as a collective to address this so that we can have a PK-16 experience that is cohesive?
And the California State University announced last week it's going to waive those troublesome remedial classes for non-math and science majors, but it's only a solution for some. Organizers of tomorrow's event point out San Diego's economy demands math and science majors, and other universities haven't made the same move. The Math Network is awarding small grants from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation so event attendees can test out potential solutions. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
Hundreds of students in City Heights will have a unique opportunity this year to become citizen scientists in a national park. KPBS reporter Susan Murphy tells us the Cabrillo National Monument in Point Loma was one of 4 national parks across the country selected for the prestigious project.
More than 500 7th grade students from one of San Diego's most underserved communities are about to embark on a science experiment like no other.
So they can see the power of conservation, the power of how protecting these places really matters.
Alex Warnicki is a science programs coordinator at the Cabrillo National Monument. She'll be working with students in their classrooms and at the park to study the region's watershed and the Mediterranean coastal sage scrub.
And they're going to be analyzing it, they're going to be measuring it,
and comparing the plants at the preserved national park.
So this is one of the plants that the students will be studying here at the park. It's called bladderpod.
To those in an altered urban environment, like their neighborhoods in City Heights.
This Mediterranean coastal sage scrub is an endangered plant community, found only 2% globally. It really allows us to connect to these students, some of which who have never been to a national park.
The project is in collaboration with the new Ocean Discovery Institute lab opening this fall in City Heights. Students will use the $15 million research center to analyze their findings. But Warnicki says the project is far more than just collecting data. It's about inspiring scientific careers and compassion for the fragile Earth.
These students are our next generation stewards. We're going to be relying on them to protect the health of our planet and the future of our national parks.
During their visit to the park, students will also be exposed to the park's many offerings.
Here at Cabrillo National Monument, we celebrate our beautiful Old Point Loma Lighthouse right here on the tip of the peninsula. We commemorate the voyage of Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo, the Kumeyaay who lived here before him, and also our role in World War II history.
The 3-year project is being funded from a $1 million private donation to the National Park Foundation. Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
San Diego is teaming up with a top defense contractor to wage war on wildfires. General Atomics announced today it will allow San Diego firefighters to ride along in its specialized aircraft equipped with sensors. The sensors are designed to pick up key details on a fire's source, direction, and how it might spread. The information will then be relayed to firefighters on the ground to help battle wildfires more effectively. When a fire strikes, San Diego Fire Chief Brian Fennessy says the question he gets asked the most is, where is the fire now?
And that's very difficult to ascertain. Some of that in the past has been, by radio, by phone, talking to my firefighters out on the line. Where is the fire now? Is it in the neighborhoods? Are we losing structures? This partnership with General Atomics is going to be able to provide that information to all of us real time.
San Diego will be the first city in the country to use the new technology. Another warm day in San Diego today, and it's only going to get hotter. Erin Calandra has tonight's forecast.
Another beautiful day here in San Diego. Taking a look at our satellite and radar, it's pretty quiet. We do see maybe just a few pop-ups near Mount Laguna, showers. Those are going to increase over the weekend. So for now, it's pretty dry compared to how it was last week, where we saw numerous showers and thunderstorms. Taking a bigger look, the reason why it's becoming more active is we have this moist air that is coming up from Mexico. Here it is, and it's shooting up, which is creating some downpours. Monsoon season, very typical and expected for here this time of year. Tonight, 69 degrees for our overnight low, increasing clouds, mainly in the morning. It's going to be cloudy, and then after lunchtime, it's going to break up. Plenty of sunshine as we typically see. Oceanside, 66 degrees tonight. Poway, 66 as well. Ramona, 62. And in Borrego Springs, 79 degrees for our low temperature. Friday, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be hot here in the interior. Along the coast, though, we have this flow coming in off the Pacific, which is going to keep it a bit cooler right along the coast. Also, it's going to increase some cloud coverage. That certainly won't last all day. Here it is. Here's that flow coming in from the Pacific, and then we have this high pressure system that is weakening, which is allowing more moisture to get into the atmosphere, as I said, which is going to contribute to some monsoons, mainly in the Four Corners, but we will see an increase here in the deserts, also in the mountains. So for tomorrow in Oceanside, 80 degrees, Poway 90, and in Mount Laguna, 81 degrees, Alpine 91. Here we are with our 5-day along the coast, around 80 degrees, plenty of sunshine in the afternoon. In the morning, it's going to be a bit cloudy. And then inland, again, low clouds in the morning, breaking up for sunshine. Temperatures in the upper 80s and low 90s. And then in the mountains, it's in the low 80s, upper 70s with plenty of sunshine, gorgeous conditions there. And in the deserts, well, we are still in the triple digits. And again, we're going to see an increase of some showers over the weekend. Pop up, could see some downpours, and then they'll be out of the way. Plenty of sunshine. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next News Hour, coming home to roost. How giving chickens antibiotics leads to the rise of superbugs. That's Thursday on the PBS News Hour.
The Wind Garden is the newest addition to the Stewart Collection at UC San Diego. Composer John Luther Adams officially opened it earlier this week. Think of it as a kind of living wind chime made up of eucalyptus trees fitted with motion and light sensors to translate wind and light patterns into sound. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando takes us behind the scenes to show how it was created.
We are in the Wind Garden, which is a small stand of eucalyptus trees in what I'm told is called the Theater District of the campus of UCSD.
The Wind Garden is the 19th public artwork added to the Stewart Collection on the UC San Diego campus. Adams' audio sculpture officially opened on Monday, but I was at the site a year ago when the project was beginning its installation.
Well, what we're installing over a period of months is a piece that was proposed by composer John Luther Adams. So the Stewart Collection is a collection of many different artworks by significant contemporary visual artists. This is our first adventure into the world of music.
I'm a composer, and so even when I do something like this that is more of a sculptural project, I still think as a composer. So this is a musical composition in the form of a garden. Everything is composed, but it's not played by human musicians, it's played by the wind. And it's not heard inside in a concert hall. It's heard outside in the real world. You might think of this as what we're doing as creating a big wind harp, an aeolian harp, that you can actually walk through, that you can be inside of. And you can sit and settle in inside of this big instrument and hear the music of these trees as they dance in the wind.
The music will interact with the live movement for the trees. So you can see there's a small sensors on the trees, and when the wind blows through the woods, the branch move and interact with the sound. You feel the wind blow through first, you see the trees moving, then you hear the sound was different.
It's something you might not even realize is a work of art, and that's exactly how composer John Luther Adams wanted it to be.
Absolutely. We want to be right on that threshold of perception, especially someone walking by on the outside, going from one appointment to the next in a hurry, may register, oh, I heard something, what was that, but just keep right on going. Another person may just be more receptive at that moment and may get drawn in. That would be a lovely thing, the accidental passerby that discovers this place. What a wonderful thing that will be.
But a lot of work and technology went into creating the Wind Garden.
We have 32 loudspeakers, 32 motion detectors, 32 accelerometers stationed in 32 different trees. So it's like a 32-voice choir or orchestra. And we're not, the instruments, the sensors are not measuring the wind per se, they're measuring the movement of the trees. And of course these trees are different ages, different heights, different thicknesses, they're in different locations, so each one behaves in a unique way. And that's part of what we're doing now is fine-tuning. Mute 25.
Oh, 25, okay, got it.
Listening to each tree and learning to hear its voice and then fine-tuning how it fits into the larger choir. We might change the tones to another tree because those tones are that tree is just too active for those tones, right. You know what I mean? Okay. We might voice it that way. And yet I hope that when you come and experience this, all of that will be invisible. And it'll just be you listening in this place. So in a way, I want all of our work to disappear.
Adams may be the creative mastermind behind the project, but the brains of the operation are located in a closet at the Mandelweiss Theater, as Yen Chung Yang points out.
Yep, that's the brain of this project. So we got computers, we got sound systems, and we have another computers that works for the sensor system.
The result of all this technology is that the Wind Garden will never sound the same twice. Each visitor's experience will be unique. Adams hopes the project will make people think about music in a new context.
If you extend the right kind of invitation to a listener, people are very open-minded, very open-eared. I've been amazed and delighted by how open, how receptive audiences are to listening to music outdoors and expanding their idea of what music is.
That's precisely what the Stewart Collection strives to do, to place art in unexpected everyday settings so we begin to question what art is. The Wind Garden does this in a unique way through sound. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
The Wind Garden is next to the Mandelweiss Theater on the UC San Diego campus and can be experienced at any time. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us and have a great evening.